good day. Today in geometry, we're going to talk about the midpoint formula as it refers to segments. There's already a question. Yes. Oh, we'll take care of that after class. Sorry, I must have skipped on my list. Okay, so we're going to talk about the midpoint formula, and my COVID mask will make sense after today because we're also going to talk about the distance formula as it relates to segments on the coordinate plane. So I've got a coordinate plane here, and you don't have to write this down necessarily. Don't use the coordinate plane that's on your sheet to copy this part down. I'm just going to give you kind of a visual of what's going on here. And let's make a segment that goes from here. And of course, what's a segment again? Just good chance for review here.
A line that has a start and an end, like a part of a line.
Right. It's a part of a line with a beginning and an end point. Okay. You can't use the distance formula with a legitimate line because a line goes on forever. All right. So let's put this here and here, connect it. And what our goal is going to be today is to find the midpoint and the distance, the measure of this segment. Okay, so when we say midpoint, what do we mean? What do we mean? This is a definition on your sheet, so we'll switch over here. When we define midpoint, what does it mean? Yeah.
The halfway point.
The halfway point or the middle of a segment. Okay. On the coordinate plane, it's going to be an actual location with an x and a y coordinate, right? But it's the middle of a segment, not a ray, not a line. Those don't have middles because they go on forever and ever in both directions. Okay. So taking a look at the segment that we have here, can anybody identify and give me the coordinates of the midpoint of this segment? Sebastian? The coordinates will be the x value and the y value. I'm looking for the ordered pair, the x, y value for where this midpoint is going to be. Oh, okay. Let's get someone else who's maybe a little bit closer and can see it then. Yeah. -1, -1. Okay, right here. Right? Does that seem to be the middle or the midpoint of that segment there? Okay, probably. Why was that easy to identify? Yeah.
It was like crossing through like on a place where it could be a point and yeah.
Sure, it was crossing through a corner, right? An actual point, okay, with integer values, not fractions or anything like that. Why else is that one kind of easy to identify? Defined slope. Excellent. What is the slope of that segment? When we say slope, we think of rise over run, change in y over change in x, kind of all those different terms. What is the slope of that segment? Luke?
-1 to -1.
Nope, not -1. Yeah.
4/6.
So 4/6, if we start at the end point and go up 4/6, does this ring a bell?
Yeah.
Slope, okay. What is the fraction 4/6 reduced to be? 2/3. And notice that if we start at the end point and we go up 2/3, we're there. If we go up 2/3 again, we're at the end point. Okay, so it's really nice when you have a segment graphed on a coordinate plane. You can use those coordinates, you can use things like slope to help you figure out what the midpoint is. If I just gave you the endpoints of this segment, if I said, tell me the midpoint of a segment with endpoints at -4, -3, and 2, 1, unless you carry around a coordinate plane in your pocket, which some of us do, okay? But if you don't, right, you might have a little bit of a harder time. So luckily, there is something called the midpoint formula. Okay? And essentially, what the midpoint formula does is it takes the average value of the x coordinates and the y coordinates of a segment's endpoints. Okay? Middle, midpoint, think average. So the midpoint formula, given two endpoints, and we're going to call them x1, y1, and x2, y2. You probably used x1, y1, x2, y2 in slope before, the slope formula. Okay? Recall that when you've got the number lowered, it's not a power, right? It's not x squared. It's not x times 2. It refers to the first x, the first y, the second x, and the second y. Right? So to find the average here, your midpoint of a segment with these endpoints will be the sum, the sum of the x values, x1 plus x2, divided by 2, because that's the average, right? There are two of them. We're adding them together and dividing by 2. That's how you find average when there are two options. And the y value of the midpoint will be the two y values added together, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Now, this being a formula, this being a key point, should it go on a help sheet?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. But the midpoint formula takes the average of your x values and the average of your y values. Let me know when you've got this down so we can go back to our example and prove to you this works. All right? Otherwise, I could just be spouting whatever I want. You have to fact check me. What's that?
Yeah.
What about a help sheet? Okay. Sorry. Now that I'm old, I can't hear as well, and so you got to really shout it out there. So going back to our example segment here, our endpoints, we can identify this as x1, y1, and x2, y2, right? The first x endpoint, the second x endpoint, the first y, second y. And using this formula, it says, okay, we're supposed to add our x values and divide by 2. So x1 plus x2 would be -4 plus 2, and we're dividing that by 2. And then we're supposed to add our y values, -3 plus 1, and divide by 2. -4 plus 2 is what? -2 divided by 2 is -1. -3 plus 1 is -2 divided by 2 is -1, which just so happens to be the very point that we identified as the midpoint already. Okay? So, on the binder page, it says find the midpoint down here at the Mr. Happy pencil section here. Find the midpoint of the segment with endpoints A and B. If you want to identify this as x1, y1, x2, y2, just to help you remember, great. Okay. Without that coordinate plane, this can be a method that's the formula is the way to go to find the middle of this segment. In this case, it's going to look like x1 plus x2, 2 plus -5. Good thing in algebra today we covered adding a negative, right? Here's where it comes into play. When would I ever add a negative number? Well, right here. Right? Our second x value is a -5. We are adding that to +2. So 2 plus -5 divided by 2? -1.5. Right? 2 plus -5 is -3. -3 divided by 2 is -1.5. Our y values added together, -3 plus 6 is +3. Divided by 2 is +1.5. So our midpoint is going to be -1.5, +1.5. Okay? And we got that by taking the average of those x values and the average of the y values. Questions on that? Does it make sense? Okay. The formula really comes in handy when you've got something like the second one there, where even if you did have your pocket coordinate plane, negative 17, negative 31, 14, negative 8, those are kind of big numbers to be plotting points and connecting and using slope and whatever else to go over. So, yeah.
Is that homework too covered?
We'll go over this second one now. Yep, your homework will be down here at the bottom. Okay. So just doing the second one, a second example here, x1 plus x2, we've got negative 17 plus 14 divided by 2. I should add some variety in these questions because once again we get negative 3 over 2 or negative 1.5. And then our y values, negative 31 plus negative 8 divided by 2. y1 plus y2 divided by 2. That gives us negative 39 divided by 2, which is what? Yeah, there we go.
Negative 19.5.
Negative 19.5. So the midpoint of this segment is negative 1.5, negative 19.5. Okay. Questions on application of the midpoint formula? Okay, so let's scroll down to the application part here, the homework section. It says, surely, this is a real world situation. So surely there's a part of you that's always wanted to be an architect. Maybe? Okay. Your job is to design a town on the coordinate grid below. Your town should include, so this must be, so that we all have the same answers here. Your town should include a library, that's important, at 3.6. So at 3.6, let's go ahead. Whoops, I got to calibrate this thing, I think. But at 3.6, we're going to have point L for the library. Remember, order pairs, the x coordinate always comes first. Okay. A church, point C, at negative 9.4. That's important as well. Okay, negative 9.4 is our church, point C. Got to have an education, so let's go to school. That's at 0.8. Put it close to the library there. Okay. And then City Hall, which is point H, at 5, negative 4. Now, my town would have a Buffalo Wild Wings in it, but oh well. Okay. So your job now, okay, if you were to connect the library point L and the school point S, what is the midpoint of that segment? Now, since you have a coordinate plane here, I did that intentionally, not so you could just look at the coordinate plane and kind of do what we did here and just kind of use slope to figure it out there. I want you to use the formula, but it's on the coordinate plane so you can visualize it and you can say, yes, that is correct. If you use the formula to find the midpoint between the library and the school, right, that segment there, and you plot your point and it's right here, you did it wrong. We can see that, right? That is not the midpoint of the library and the school. So the reason why it's on a coordinate plane is not so you can just get the answer by looking at it, but it's so that you can check the answer that you get by plotting it and seeing if it makes sense. So you're finding the midpoint between the library and the school. You're finding the midpoint between the church and City Hall. So we're going to connect these two, find the midpoint there. You're going to find the midpoint between the school and the church. You're connecting points C and S. And I guess I didn't really care about the midpoint between the library and the City Hall, but we're not connecting that. Okay. Then your brain buster down at the bottom, it says, what is endpoint B of segment AB where point A is at negative 10.6 and the midpoint is at 14, negative 2. So this time, instead of giving you both endpoints and having you use the formula to find the midpoint, I give you one of the endpoints and the midpoint, and you'd figure out how to find the other endpoint. Okay, good, good, good. The formula can be used to help you here if you understand what the pieces are and where to place everything. Otherwise, logic can serve you well here too. But that's the gist of the midpoint formula. Any questions on that? Okay. Yes, Luke.
Well, no, well, I have a question for the library and the school.
Yeah.
For the school, for the library, it's 0, and it would be 0 plus 6.
The library.
Sorry, no, it's for the school. Like, it's midpoint of the library and the school. Midpoint. You have to find midpoint of the library and the school.
Right. So your school ordered pair, library ordered pair is 3, 6, and your school is 0, 8.
No, I'm talking about the school.
Yep. Okay. So, Luke, you're using these two order pairs.
I know. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm talking about with the 8 and the 0. With the 0, like throw off the equation a little bit.
No.
Oh,
No. No. If you use the formula, trust the formula, plug in the values where they belong, and then plot your point, you'll see it does land smack dab in the middle. Okay. If it doesn't, then something with the formula is off, and you can come and ask me about where things might be misplaced. Okay. Yeah.
What if you're just not good at drawing straight lines?
What's that?
What if you're just not good at drawing straight lines?
You know what? So Gabby asked, what if you're not good at drawing straight lines? As we get deeper into algebra and we start graphing things and you see me draw straight lines, you will see that I have a real life problem with drawing straight lines. So do the best you can. And I feel your pain. I feel your pain. Question?
Do you have to draw the midpoint on the grid?
Plot it, yes. So you make sure that's in the right spot. You should be able to confirm it with visualizing. Okay. Sebastian, have a seat, please. Now is not the time to help others out. I appreciate your kindness, but not quite yet. Okay. Questions on CO3? Okay. We're going to do a new video for CO4 so you know the response. That is how you math.